Hey there, deep diver. Buckle up, because today we're going deep into conversational hypnosis. You know those notes you gave us from Virginie Eymere?
Oh, yeah, the hypnosis expert.
That's the one.
Uh,
She's got some incredible strategies for handling clients who just won't stop talking.
that's so interesting because you think of hypnosis and you picture quiet, like almost a sleepy state.
Right.
But conversational hypnosis is all about using language in a really clever way to kind of gently guide someone to a deeper awareness. And sometimes that means working through a lot of, well, words.
It really is like peeking behind the scenes, isn't it? Seeing how therapists can actually use conversation to get to the unconscious mind.
Yeah.
It's almost like there's this unconscious gold hidden within all the words the client's saying.
Yeah.
But how do you even find it if the client just keeps talking?
Exactly. All that conscious chatter can be such a distraction, like trying to hear a whisper in a noisy room.
Oh.
The therapist has to be incredibly skilled at listening. They're not listening to everything. They're looking for something very specific. Those short, almost offhand remarks, phrases that hint at the deeper issue. Things that might sound random or even abstract, but they're like little nuggets of unconscious gold.
I can see why this is so tricky. Do you have an example from the notes of what that unconscious gold might sound like?
Yeah. So Virginie Eymere talks about this client who wants to quit smoking. And they're going on and on about all the reasons why it's so hard. You know, the stress, the habit, all the usual stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
But then, almost as an aside, they say, deep down, I really loved it. It
Hmm.
seems like such a simple statement. But it's this huge shift from conscious excuses to unconscious truth.
Wow, that's fascinating. That one sentence completely changes our understanding of why this person might be struggling.
Yeah.
It's not just about the habit itself. It's about a deeper emotional connection to smoking.
Precisely. That's what the therapist picks up on, that tiny statement. It's like a doorway into the unconscious.
Okay, so how does the therapist even begin to address that with the client?
Well, it's all about being polite but firm,
Yeah,
almost like a gentle but insistent guide.
right.
Virginie talks about using body language like a direct look, combined with your tone of voice, to gently steer the conversation.
I see, I see.
Imagine a parent lovingly redirecting a rambling child, but on a much more subtle level, I guess.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's less about shutting the client down completely. It's more about kind of shaping the conversation. But, I mean, isn't there a risk of constantly interrupting? Won't that derail the client's train of thought?
It seems like it would, right? But surprisingly, these well-placed interruptions can actually help create a kind of mini trance state.
Wait, really? Interrupting leads to a trance? I don't get it. How does that even work?
It all comes down to the shift in attention. You have the therapist who's so focused on listening, and the client has to pause for a second to process the redirection. And it creates this little break in the flow of conscious chatter. It's like a mental reset button.
Ah,
It allows the client to just dip their toes into a different level of awareness, even if it's just for a brief moment. And that little bit of introspection can sometimes be all it takes to allow deeper material to surface.
so those interruptions aren't just about managing the conversation. They're actually part of the therapeutic process.
That's wild. It sounds like there's another level of skill involved here. We were talking before about how the therapist has to figure out what's actually relevant and all the things the client is saying. So how do they actually decide what to focus on?
Ah, that's where the true expertise comes in. Separating the gold from the dirt. You have to develop this almost like an instinct, this mental filter that helps you to zero in on the truly relevant bits of information. It's not simply about stopping the client from talking. It's about guiding them toward the heart of the matter.
So a hypnotherapist needs to be a great listener, but also kind of like a detective, figuring out which clues are the most important. Exactly. They have to sift through everything the client says and identify which pieces hold the key to their unconscious patterns and beliefs. And then they can use those insights to gently guide the client towards deeper understanding and change.
So it's amazing to think that these conversational skills can have such a powerful impact, in a therapeutic setting. But I'm curious, could these techniques actually be helpful in everyday conversations as well?
Absolutely. You don't need to be a trained hypnotherapist to benefit from understanding how this unconscious communication works. In fact, I'd say that being aware of these subtle cues can make all the difference in how we connect with people in our daily lives.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So you're saying if I pay attention to not just what people are saying, but how they're saying it, I can gain a deeper understanding of what's really going on. Isn't that kind of like mind reading?
Not quite mind reading, but it definitely involves tuning in to those nonverbal signals. They often speak louder than words. We've all had those moments where someone says, I'm fine, but their tone of voice or their body language tells a totally different story?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like when your friend says they're not upset, but they're practically fuming.
Exactly. That's a perfect example. Their conscious mind might be trying to downplay their feelings, but their unconscious mind is leaking through in those subtle cues. And if we can learn to pick up on those signals, we can have much more authentic and meaningful interactions.
Okay, so how do we actually start doing that? Are there any specific techniques we can use to develop this like unconscious decoder ring ability?
One of the most important things is to cultivate a sense of genuine curiosity and non-judgment. So instead of jumping to conclusions or trying to impose our own interpretations, we need to approach conversations with a genuine desire to really understand the other person's perspective.
So it's about being present and really listening, not just waiting for our turn to speak, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Active listening is key. Pay attention to the nuances of their words, their tone of voice, their facial expressions, even their posture. Don't be afraid to ask clarifying questions. Sometimes simply reflecting back what you've heard can help the other person articulate their thoughts more clearly.
I can see how that would create a much safer space for someone to open up. It's like we're giving them permission to explore their own feelings without feeling judged or pressured to have all the answers.
And as you practice this, you'll start to notice fascinating patterns in people's communication styles. You'll begin to recognize those subtle shifts in their body language, their choice of words, the little things that reveal their underlying beliefs and motivations.
It sounds almost like learning a new language, the language of the unconscious mind.
I love that analogy. And just like with any language, the more you immerse yourself in it, the more fluent you become. You start to intuitively grasp the nuances and subtleties.
All right, I'm ready to start decoding. Can you give me some examples of what these patterns might look like in a real conversation? I want to be able to spot those unconscious clues.
Okay, let's say you're talking to a friend who's complaining about their job. They might say something like, I'm so stressed, I have so much work to do, and my boss is constantly on my case.
Okay, that's a pretty standard complaint. How do we go beyond the words and find the deeper meaning?
Pay close attention to how they're saying it. Are their shoulders slumped? Are they sighing heavily? Are they speaking in a monotone voice? Or are they leaning forward, gesturing with their hands, and their voice is full of emotion?
I see what you mean. Their nonverbal communication is giving us a whole other layer of information. Someone who's slumped over in monotone might be feeling hopeless and resigned, while someone who's more animated might actually be frustrated, but also energized to make a change.
Exactly, and that distinction can completely change how you respond to them. Do they need a listening ear and validation of their feelings, or are they actually looking for solutions and brainstorming ideas?
Wow, this is making me rethink all those times I've misinterpreted someone's intentions because I was only focusing on their words. I'm starting to realize how much I've been missing.
It's truly fascinating how much communication happens beneath the surface. And the more we practice tuning into those subtle cues, the more meaningful our interactions become. It's like we're opening up this whole new dimension of understanding.
I love this. It's like having a secret superpower. But I'm wondering, do we need to go through formal hypnotherapy training to develop these skills? Or are there ways we can start practicing in our everyday lives so we don't have to enroll in hypnotherapy school to unlock these communication skills? What are some ways we can start practicing this unconscious listening, in our daily lives?
You absolutely do not need formal training to start. One of the most powerful tools is actually quite simple: mindfulness.
Mindfulness. That's a popular concept these days, but what does it have to do with conversational hypnosis? I thought mindfulness was all about meditation and being present in the moment.
It is. And that same present moment awareness is crucial for tapping into those unconscious cues we've been talking about. When you're fully present in a conversation, you're not just listening to the words, you're picking up on all those subtle nonverbal signals. The tone of voice, the facial expressions, the body language. It's like your senses are heightened and you're able to absorb a much richer layer of information.
Okay, so instead of letting my mind wander or planning my next witty remark, I need to really focus on what the other person is communicating, both verbally and non-verbally.
Exactly. And as you practice being more mindful in your interactions, you'll be amazed at how much you start to notice. It's like you're training your brain to pick up on those subtle hints that reveal what's going on beneath the surface. You'll start to see those patterns emerge, naturally.
Okay, mindfulness is on my list. Any other practical tips for our aspiring unconscious communicators out there?
Here's one that might surprise you. Silence.
Silence. But we were just talking about how some clients talk nonstop.
Yes, but even with a talkative person, silence can be incredibly powerful. When we pause after someone has spoken, it gives them space to reflect and perhaps go a little deeper with their thoughts. And it also gives us a moment to process what we've heard and formulate a more thoughtful response.
So instead of jumping in to fill the silence, I should embrace those pauses and see where they lead.
Exactly. Silence allows the conversation to breathe. It creates a space for those unconscious nuggets to surface. It can be a little uncomfortable at first, but it's amazing what can emerge when we resist the urge to fill every gap with words.
This is brilliant. Mindfulness and silence. I'm already feeling more equipped to have deeper conversations. Any other secret weapons you can share?
Let's add one more tool to your kit: mirroring.
Mirroring. Like when you stand in front of a mirror and practice your expressions.
Not quite. In this context, mirroring is about subtly reflecting back the other person's body language, their tone of voice, even their choice of words. It's about creating a sense of resonance and connection.
So if someone is leaning forward, I should subtly lean in as well. Or if they're speaking softly, I should lower my voice to match theirs.
Yes, but it has to be done subtly, almost unconsciously. We're not trying to mimic them in a way that feels forced or awkward. It's about finding that natural rhythm and flow that makes the other person feel heard and understood.
So it's like I'm speaking their language, both verbally and non-verbally. I can see how that would build rapport and trust, making them feel more comfortable sharing their deeper thoughts and feelings.
Precisely. That sense of connection is key to unlocking those unconscious doors. When people feel safe and understood, they're more likely to let their guard down and reveal those deeper truths.
These techniques are so fascinating. It's like we're learning to decode the secrets of human communication. But is it really that simple? Can anyone master these skills?
The beauty of it is that these skills can be learned and practiced by anyone. Just like learning to ride a bike, it takes conscious effort at first. But the more you practice mindfulness, silence, and mirroring, the more natural they become. Eventually, they become integrated into your communication style without even thinking about it.
So we're not just learning about conversational hypnosis, we're actually rewiring our brains to become more effective communicators in all areas of our lives.
Absolutely. And that's what's so exciting about this work. It has the potential to transform not just our conversations, but our relationships, our careers, and our understanding of ourselves and others.
Well said. This has been an incredible deep dive into the world of conversational hypnosis. We've learned so much from Virginie Eymere's insights about how much communication goes on beneath the surface and how we can tap into those unconscious cues to have more authentic and meaningful connections.
And remember, even those seemingly talkative clients are offering us valuable insights into their inner world if we know how to listen.
It's so true. So to all our deep divers out there, the next time you find yourself in a conversation, remember these powerful techniques. Practice mindfulness, embrace the silence, and try a little mirroring. You might be surprised at what you discover, both about yourself and the people you interact with.